What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over my favorite picks in every round of your fantasy draft. I kept the picks kind of towards the middle and end of each round, so you should have the ability to draft most of these guys. If you enjoy the content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, so let's get right into it. I'm on the fantasyfootballadvice.com. They have a lot of useful tools on their site, and I would highly recommend taking a look. This is in the ADP tab, so I'm just going to go right here. Underdog ADP is the most competitive and the most accurate, so that's what we're going to be going by today. And we will filter this down to 10 players. So this is who you have going in the first round of your 10-team PPR drafts. I think this is half PPR, but it's the most in the middle that you can get. So here is the ADP at its current state. We've got McCaffrey going at 1 and Dalvin Cook at 2, which is obvious. But my favorite picks in this round are going to be Zeke and Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is the best value, and the reason I like Zeke and Aaron Jones is because they're in really high scoring offenses. So, they can have a season where they hit, 15 touchdowns without a problem. I think Zeke is still in his prime. He's only, I believe, 26 years old, if not 25. So I think Zeke has a lot of time left. I think Tony Pollard can mix in, but Zeke is going to have most of the first and second down work and third down work just because he's a great pass catcher, and he's proved that. So I really like Zeke in the middle of the first, and I love Aaron Jones just because he's in an even better offense than Ezekiel Elliott, and I think he's shown that he can stay on the field. The only thing with Aaron Jones is now that A.J. Dillon is there, you could see why you would want to give A.J. Dillon some goal line touches. So other than that, though, Aaron Jones is primed to have maybe the best fantasy season he's had, just because Jamal Williams is gone, so he's not getting any passing work taken from him. So I really, really like Aaron Jones in the first. So in the first round, I've got Aaron Jones and Ezekiel Elliott. That's who I'm looking to target in the first round. Let's move on to the second. In the second round, you've got Diggs going at the top. You've got Eckler, Calvin Ridley, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Hopkins, Antonio Gibson, Metcalf, Mixon, and Harris to finish out the round. The two guys that I'm looking for right here are Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon. Nick Chubb is pretty much the safest fantasy option that you can have. He's the most efficient fantasy player as well. He's like Derrick Henry 2.0, except you get him in the second round. And if anything happens to Kareem Hunt, that workload is just going to skyrocket. They want to get him 20 carries a game. So I really like Nick Chubb in the second round. If you can get Nick Chubb as your RB2, you're in really good shape. So love Nick Chubb in round 2. And the second guy I'm targeting is Joe Mixon. For much of the same reasons. He's actually in a Bengals backfield that no longer has Giovanni Bernard. So he should be very, very productive with Joe Burrow coming into his second year, them drafting Jamar Chase. They should be able to score some points on offense, as well as the offensive line improving. I really like where Joe Mixon is looking to head in 2021, just because I believe in the talent of Joe Mixon, and then on top of that, their offense should improve, and he should have some lanes to run this season, unlike last season. I really like Joe Mixon in the second round. So moving on to the third, you've got A.J. Brown going at the top and J.K. Dobbins finishing out the third round. You're going to see George Kittle and Darren Waller regularly go in the third round as well. But my favorite picks here are A.J. Brown and Terry McLaurin, mainly because you're drafting them in the third round, but they have top 5 positional upside. I wouldn't be surprised if A.J. Brown does finish in that top 5. Even though Julio Jones joins A.J. Brown, I don't think that should diminish his value too much, although when Julio played with Calvin Ridley, it was in Atlanta and a much more pass-heavy offense. I do like the position that A.J. Brown is in heading into the 2021 season. So if I go running back to start my draft and I end up with A.J. Brown as my wide receiver 1, I am totally okay with that. And definitely okay with that if Terry McLaurin slides to me and he's my wide receiver 1. I think his upside is really good. He's flashed and shown the ability to be a top 15 wide receiver in fantasy, and that's with terrible quarterback play. Ryan Fitzpatrick regularly supports a number one wide receiver, which is why I really like Terry McLaurin. So in round three, look at AJ Brown and look at Terry McLaurin. Heading into round four here, we've got Amari Cooper, DeAndre Swift, Robert Woods, Mahomes going in the fourth, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, David Montgomery, Cooper Kupp, Chris Carson, and Julio Jones to finish out the fourth round. Now, seeing Julio Jones in the fourth round just looks crazy, but it makes sense to me. They have Derrick Henry on their team. Tannehill doesn't usually want to throw more than 30 passes a game, but I think Julio Jones is still fine to pick in the fourth round. I don't think he's over or undervalued. That's not someone I'm targeting, though. The two players I'm looking at are David Montgomery and Mike Evans. Now, Mike Evans is a very debatable player within the fantasy industry just because last year he had a career low in targets, but he posted 13 touchdowns. So the touchdown upside is there. I think they're going to continue to look for him in the red zone. And I think 106 targets is really just going to be the lowest he'll ever see. I think Brady will hit him with a little bit more targets this year, and I think he's going to be fine as a wide receiver too for your team. So I'm targeting Mike Evans here, and I'm also targeting David Montgomery. David Montgomery finished as the running back 4 in fantasy football last season, and now he's getting drafted in the fourth round. Not much has changed, even though Damian Williams is in the backfield and Tariq Cohen is coming back from injury. But I still think David Montgomery has a solid workload, and the volume should be there for him. So I like David Montgomery in round 4. Moving on to round 5, you've got Chris Godwin and DJ Moore leading this round. Darrell Henderson is here as well, and rookie tight end Kyle Pitts is also getting drafted in the 5th round. The players I'm looking to target here are Miles Sanders going at the end of the 5th. You can get him sometimes in the 6th. I'm not targeting him because I think he's going to have, a top 10 upside season, but I think we're drafting him pretty much at his floor. I think Miles Sanders is an extremely talented player. It's just unfortunate the situation that he's in. But if he gets to the 5th and 6th round, I'll be happy to have him as my running back too. And the other player I want to talk about is DJ Moore going in the 5th round. The guy just needs the targets, and I think Sam Darnold might be able to create chemistry with him quickly. Even though Robbie Anderson has a leg up, I think DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall are the more talented wide receivers in this offense. So I really like DJ Moore here in the 5th round. Moving on to the 6th round, you've got pretty much quarterback city here with Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Lamar. In the 6th round of a 10-team PPR, I don't mind drafting those guys, and Kyler Murray is the one I'm looking for out of this group. He was the quarterback 1 weeks 1 through 9 last year before getting injured, and I think he has the most upside run and pass wise, and he's in just such a fantasy friendly offense with tons of weapons. So I'm looking at Kyler Murray here in the 5th. As well as Kyler Murray, I'm actually not going to go away from wide receivers and running backs this round. I'm looking at Kyler Murray and I'm looking at Mark Andrews. Typically, when you're drafting the tight end as the primary pass catcher out of the team, so Mark Andrews is getting drafted ahead of guys like Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman. He's the primary pass catcher, and usually those guys are going to pan out in fantasy. So I really like Mark Andrews here in the 6th. You don't have to pay that, top 3-round premium for Kittle or Waller. So I like Andrews here in the 6th, and I would be happy taking him. Moving on to the 7th, you've got Mike Davis leading the way and ending with Tyler Boyd. But the players that I am looking to target here in round 7 are Kenny Galladay and Javonte Williams. So I'm targeting Kenny Galladay despite pretty much an awful start to camp. He's injured. He's got a hamstring injury, which is never good. He has an injury history, so you never know what's going to happen with Kenny Galladay, but talent-wise, I think he's by far the best receiver on this team. They kind of have a crowded receiver room at this point with Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, and then they added Kadarius Toney, but they paid Kenny Galladay to be that number 1 guy, and I think if he sees over 120 targets, he's going to well pay off as a wide receiver 2 for you. So Kenny Galladay is where I'm going wide receiver-wise here. If you need a running back and you you did anchor RB, basically drafting one stud running back and then waiting the rest of the draft, and I would not mind drafting Javonte Williams as my running back too, just because I think the second half of the season he's really going to take over that starting role for the Broncos, and even to start the season it should be a 50-50 split. So also believe in the talent there. Javonte Williams in the 7th, I'll roll the dice on that. Going to the 8th round, I'm looking at 2 wide receivers here actually, and that is Antonio Brown and Devontae Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm targeting Antonio Brown because when you look at the target numbers in the Tampa Bay offense once he got there, he wasn't far behind Godwin or Evans. So the fact that you can snag him in the 7th or the 8th round is getting ridiculous. It used to be the 10th and 11th at the start of the fantasy season, but it's finally starting to rise up a little bit. Antonio Brown is still, a veteran wide receiver who used to be the best receiver in the league. I don't think you should sleep on him. If you can get him in the 8th round, I would definitely take him. Devontae Smith is really just a volume play. They have no wide receivers there in Philadelphia. Besides Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor has terrible reports coming out of camp. And then behind Jalen Reagor, you have Travis Fulgham. None of those guys are going to be heavy target guys. Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz will have some targets, but Devontae Smith should see 10-plus targets a game if he's healthy. So right now, I think he didn't play in the first preseason game, so hopefully he gets healthy and he's able to play in the second one. I'm looking at Devontae Smith and Antonio Brown in round 8. We're going to break down 2 more rounds before the end of the video, so let's take a look at 9. In round 9, you've got Herbert and Rodgers quarterback-wise going. You've got Mostert in this round. And speaking of Mostert, I'm targeting him at this point. He's just so explosive, and he has a chance to really exceed expectation. I know he's someone who gets hurt a lot, which is why Trey Sermon is someone who's going. Is he going a round before him now? Yeah. So Trey Sermon goes a whole round before Raheem Mostert, and I can see why. They drafted Sermon. The 49ers moved up to get Trey Sermon, so they obviously want to get him touches, but I don't think that means Raheem Mostert goes away. I think Raheem Mostert in the 9th round has huge upside. If he gets 12 touches a game, he's bound to break one off, and I just really like the explosiveness of Raheem Mostert. He's a veteran, but he has, he has the upside to win you weeks. So unlike most people in the industry, I like Mostert right here. I also like Brandon Cooks just because he's the number 1 on his team, and there's no one even close to competing. You had Anthony Miller in camp, just separated his shoulder, so it's really just Brandon Cooks. And even though you don't know who's throwing back there, they should just be peppering targets to Brandon Cooks. I think here in the 8th or the 9th round, that's a great value pick. Moving on to the last round that I'm going to be talking about, I'm looking for Darnell Mooney here, and I'm looking at Elijah Moore. Although camp hype has had Elijah Moore going through the roof, it's kind of coming back down due to injury. And Jamison Crowder's still there. He's pretty solid in the slot. You've got Denzel Mims still there as well with Corey Davis. But I think Elijah Moore should break out there. So I'm looking at Elijah Moore, and I'm looking at Darnell Mooney for upside. He's the wide receiver 2 on the Bears offense that doesn't seem to be too explosive in the pass game, but Darnell Mooney was open all over the field last season. He just didn't have a quarterback who can get it to him. So I like Darnell Mooney here in the 10th. And that's going to wrap up my targets for this 2021 fantasy draft. Take a look at the Fantasy Football Advice website here. It gives you the ADP for pretty much every platform. Look at this. You got Darnell Mooney who's going in the 10th on underdog drafts, but in ESPN and all Yahoo, all this stuff, he's 130, 127, and it gives you where you can get the best value and the worst value. So I highly recommend going there. But that's going to do it for today's video. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Until next time.